The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mark L. Sanders II, Deputy Commissioner of Workforce and Human Services for the Department of Family and Support Services. Thank you for joining our webinar for the Emergency Food for At-Risk Populations and an Optional Senior Food Box Program, as well as our Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Program, RFP. In one moment, we will begin.
All right, thanks a lot, Mark. My name is Thomas Mose. I'm with the Department of Family Support Services. I'm just speaking real quickly because I support all of our DFSS divisions on these RFP webinars. And so I just want to help with technical assistance today, and I'll be controlling the PowerPoint presentation. So some housekeeping real quick is that due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. We'd like you to submit your questions, and you can do that in the question box, and we'll respond to the questions after going through the slides. We have a team of presenters that will be talking today and identify themselves, so they'll be able to help answer your questions. And again, if you have any technical issues, please use your question box, notify us of that, and I can respond usually to an audio issue or something. And then lastly, I just want to remind people that we're recording this webinar. There will be a recording available, and we'll explain to you how you'll be able to get that recording, and also the PowerPoint slides will be made available at a later time. So just wanted to help answer any of those questions that you may have right away. And with that, I am going to get to the next slide and let the team begin. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. All right, as you can see, this is our agenda for this afternoon. We'll welcome and go through welcome and introductions of the team, give an overview of our mission and our priorities, talk about the strategic framework for the RFPs, give some background about the division and the RFPs that we're talking about today. We'll go over the target population for the RFPs that we'll be discussing, and then we'll do a programmatic overview of the Emergency Food Assistance for At-Risk Populations RFP, as well as the Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment RFP. After that, we'll talk through the timeline for this process, go over some technical assistance for applications for the applicants and the eProcurement tool, and we'll go over any questions that you have today. Next slide. Just to start off again, my name is Mark Sanders. I'm joined by my colleague, Ms. Lori Walls. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Lori Walls. I work for the Department of Family and Support Services. I am in the grants unit, but I provide support, both programmatically and grant-related support for our human service delivery programs.
I am also joined by my colleague, Julia Talbot. Julia, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, I'm Julia Talbot, and I manage the RFP process for the department. So I'll be talking to you later about how to do some stuff in the eProcurement environment, which is where you make an application.
All right, thank you both. Just a quick overview of the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services. Here's our program divisions. We have the Children's Services, Senior Services, Division on Domestic Violence, Workforce Services, Homeless Services, as well as Youth Services. But today, as we've mentioned, we're diving into 2 RFPs from the Human Services Division. Next slide. Our mission and priorities at the department. Working with community partners, we connect Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to thrive. At the department, our priorities are to deliver and support high quality, innovative, and comprehensive services that empower clients to thrive. We want to collaborate with community partners, sister agencies, and public officials on programs and policies that improve Chicagoans' lives and advance systemic change. We also want to inform the public of resources available to them through DFSS and its community partners. Finally, we want to steward DFSS's resources responsibly and effectively. Next slide. The goal of DFSS's commitment to outcomes is to achieve better results for vulnerable Chicagoans. As you may know, DFSS launched phase 1 of the strategic framework process in early 2016 to transition our department to a more outcome-oriented and data-driven approach for delivering services. At its heart, the strategic framework is about placing a greater focus on the quality of services we provide and client progress. We call these outcomes. And not just focusing on the number of clients or the units of services that we deliver, what we call outputs. The first phase of the strategic framework process was internal, and it focused on setting priorities and outcome goals and making them a core part of our department's work. In 2018, we moved to the second phase of this process, incorporating the strategic framework into our contracting and engaging the service provider community, all of you, to improve our outcomes. We know that the large majority of DFSS's work is achieved through partnerships with service providers throughout the community. So unless our outcome goals are embedded in our partnerships, we're not able to achieve results. So with this in mind, we developed the RFPs and contracts in a way that is more focused on outcome goals. And now we're in phase 3, performance improvement. This is where we implement performance improvement systems to prioritize and execute efforts, as well as improve results, which will lead us into the development of phase 4, which will be system coordination to improve service matching and referrals, as well as linking data to improve clients' experiences and outcomes. Next slide. At DFSS, our RFPs are viewed as critical strategic tools. We want to use our RFPs and contracts to ensure outcomes continue to be at the center of our work. We want to develop a shared understanding of priorities for and how we will track improvement. And we want to support two-way communication between DFSS and our delegates about best practices, high-quality services, as well as the needs of those that we serve. We've adjusted the structure and content of our RFPs and application questions to shift the focus away from activities to goals, align our priorities with selection criteria and application questions, and we want to pose questions that provide the most relevant information for decision making. Next slide. This entire framework for improvement, we want to focus on paying attention to performance measures, asking ourselves, how will we measure success? How will we know if anyone is better off? We also want to be clear about not just our program requirements, but we want to talk about the why behind those requirements and make sure that we provide some context for where we are today and why we've selected the priorities for the future of the program. We also want to focus on our outcome goals, keeping them at the center of our process, which is how we define what we're trying to achieve with each RFP. Next slide. Our selection criteria is a reflection of our focus on results and best practices. So through each of these 4 stages, we want to focus on the strength of the proposed program, where we give you an opportunity to talk about how you will deliver services appropriate to achieving these outcomes. We want to talk about performance management and outcomes. This is where you have your time to talk about your strong past performance and how you are capable of collecting and using data to manage performance. We want to also talk about organizational capacity. This is where you demonstrate that you have the appropriate staff, systems, and processes in place in order to accomplish your goals. We also want to know if you reflect the diversity. This RFP is that based on applicant and evaluator survey feedback, we want to be more focused on clearly describing program expectations as well as our priorities for improvement. Additionally, given the events over the past year, we want to make sure that all of our RFPs integrate a greater focus on equity as well as lessons learned about service delivery during the COVID-19 pandemic. And with that, we will transition to Lori, who will begin our brief overview of the program.
Thank you, Mark. We will begin the brief overview with a discussion regarding the emergency food for at-risk populations in the optional senior food box program. Under this program, all models involve emergency food distribution. However, the difference is the point of customer engagement. For the first area or model, we address the needs of those who are visiting food pantries. We, in this particular model, are looking to have pantries located within a 5-mile radius of our 6 community service centers. The goal is to have those facilities to operate minimally from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. It is also our preference that at least a small percentage of the pantries that are located within this particular model have extended evening hours to accommodate those individuals who may actually work from 9 to 5 and for whom other facilities would not be available to them. So we encourage a small number within that overall model to operate extended hours and weekend hours. Our second model is our homeless service and domestic shelter fresh fruit and produce program. These agencies are designated by the Department of Family and Support Services. Currently, there are 53 homeless service shelters and 4 domestic violence programs that operate and are supported through this particular model. The third model is our community service centers. And during the holiday seasons, whether it's Thanksgiving or our winter holidays near the end of the year, those individuals who are involved in case management receive both turkeys and or hams, as well as other non-perishable food items to celebrate the holidays. Our fourth model is specific to our senior service population, and they provide, under this particular model, food boxes for those caretakers of senior citizens. So the varying distribution schedules apply to each one of the 4 models, as well as the overall impacted target population between the various models. But at the end of the day, they have one thing in common: they respond to the emergency food needs of residents in the city of Chicago. Next slide. The purpose of the RFP is to seek organizations that have experience in the procurement and distribution of all types of nutritious food products, and as well as those that have experience in operating major distribution processes, as well as having the storage capabilities that's minimally 3 months of food product to be maintained in the event of emergency. We also are looking for a vendor who has experienced staff in food distribution. Each one of these areas has to respond to one of the 4 areas previously mentioned, whether it be food pantries, supplying food products for the designated homeless and domestic violence shelters, or food products for those clients or customers who are frequenting our community service centers. As it relates to our senior food box program, this is an optional program model. If you are interested in competing for model number 4 or the senior food box program, you will have to submit a separate budget. It is a specialized population that involves the delivery of one-time food products to older adults. Next slide. The background of the emergency food program is long and wide. The program has existed in the many iterations of our department for over 30 years. When you look at this slide, you see the reference to the Good Food Purchasing Program. This was developed in 2012 and adopted in 2017. The city, as well as the county, approved what is known as the GFPP program in 2017 and 2018, respectively. This gradual implementation of the GFPP requires participation by all city departments and agencies that purchase any food products, yet the benefits of this are combined to provide the healthiest possible food products to those individuals that we serve. And you say, what does this have to do with the emergency food program? Those individuals who are approved for funding under the emergency food program should be and will be expected to operate in compliance with the expectations of the GFPP program and to incorporate this model into their overall service delivery approach. In terms of the emergency food program, in 2020, under the base program, 649,304 pounds of food were distributed. Through our CARES funding, we were able to distribute 7.9 million pounds of food for a combination of 8.6 million pounds of food. The program was expanded substantially in order to accommodate the need that was determined as a result of the pandemic. On average, the program distributes 1.7 million pounds of food on an annual basis. Next slide. For the emergency food program, the selected respondents will maintain a network of food pantries, including at least one within a 5-mile radius of each one of the 6 Department of Family and Support Services community service centers, and additional locations concentrated in food insecure and food desert areas. Currently, we operate approximately 100 food pantries under this program. Respondents will also provide homeless and domestic violence shelters designated by DFSS with fresh fruits and vegetables. In addition, the selected respondents will deliver holiday food to our community service centers, including hams and turkeys. Not only will this be delivered to our community service centers, it will also be delivered to our shelter system and those designated sites as well. Additional food deliveries may be required due to special circumstances. One of the special circumstances was the pandemic in 2020. When we began the year, there was no indicated or anticipated need to increase our service levels. However, we were required to respond to the need that was identified at the time. So the program had to expand in order to accommodate that special circumstance and or need. In addition, there is the optional or additional senior food box program, which seeks to provide one-time delivery of fresh produce and meat options for older adults and their caregivers who do not fit into the home delivered meals portfolio. Next slide. As I indicated earlier, the target populations are individuals and families that frequent the domestic violence and or homeless service shelters, the community service centers, food pantries, and individuals who live in food insecure communities and or food deserts. The target population for each one of the various program models and where the clients or customers are engaged will vary depending upon which program model is selected. Again, the optional and/or additional senior food box prioritizes clients that serve as caregivers for adult family members and/or individuals who are in an informal provider of in-home or community care of an older individual being age 60 or above. Next slide. Additional program requirements. The emergency food for at-risk populations seeks organizations to meet the following overall requirements. Experience in procurement and distribution of all types of food products. Establish relationships with a network of food pantries equitably distributed within a 5-mile radius of the DFSS community service centers and in food insecure food deserts. The ability to deliver produce, fresh fruit and vegetables to approximately 60 homeless and domestic violence shelters throughout the city of Chicago. To meet the diverse ethnic needs of the population served by DFSS, including the ability to address nutritional needs and dietary constraints due to age, allergies, medical conditions, veganism, vegetarianism, and/or religious food practices at the various pantries. The ability to incorporate the recommendations of the good food purchasing policies, a willingness to promote and share resources that will help empower the customers that are served through the food pantries, to provide food pantry networks with referral information and/or resources made available to you by the Department of Family and Support Services, and to conduct surveys at the food pantry network sites to secure patron or customer feedback. This information is used to improve the service delivery model. The ability to have a 3-month reserve of food in order to accommodate the program requirements. Next slide, please. The final program requirement or program option, again, is optional. And that is for the Senior Services Optional Additional Food Box Program. This includes fresh produce, pantry staples, or 2 options, frozen meat and/or vegetables, to be distributed to the participants at their home. The schedules for food distribution for this and all of the other models vary by model. Next slide. The program goals and outcomes for the emergency food program include various benchmarks depending upon the model selected. For the distribution to pantries, the request is that you identify the selected pantries, have an inventory of those pantry hours, the number of pounds that will be distributed to the selected pantries, the number of people served, the number and characteristics of those individuals served demographically, race, gender, ethnicity, pantry satisfaction, which is the client survey, and then for the food distribution at shelters, the number of pounds distributed to the shelter, the number of shelters participating, the number of site visits to those shelters to ensure the safety of the food products storage by that particular selected location, the number of people served, the number of characteristics for the people who are receiving the food product, and shelter satisfaction surveys. Next slide. For the performance goals and outcomes for the optional or additional senior food box program model, the benchmarks are consistent. 80% of the caregivers say that the service has resulted in them feeling less overwhelmed as a caregiver. 80% of the clients surveyed indicate overall satisfaction with the service provided, and 80% of the senior food box service referrals received from DFSS will be delivered to the participants on the following week. Exceptions include the inability to reach participants, cancellations, and/or the rescheduling of requests. Next slide. As we talked about earlier, the Good Food Purchasing Program is also an expectation for performance and goals outcomes. The number of contacts with DFSS staff regarding the implementation of the program are required. The number of good food purchasing policy recommendations incorporated into the food procurement plan for the agency are also required. In addition to the items previously mentioned with regard to performance indicators and output metrics listed above and on the prior slide, DFSS encourages respondents to propose additional indicators and metrics, including those that may demonstrate early success and are indicators of the participant's progress. Next slide.
The Public Benefits Outreach and Enrollment Program. The purpose of the PBOE program is to conduct outreach, education, screening, application assistance, and follow-up support between applicant households and government agencies for eligible applicants attempting to access federal, state, and/or local government-issued public benefits or programs. Our goal is to increase the number of individuals accessing these resources. Next slide. The PBO program seeks to increase the number of households accessing federal, state, and local government-issued public benefits, including but not limited to Medicare premium assistance and Medicaid, temporary aid to needy families, supplemental nutrition assistance program, women, infants, and children, aid to the aged, blind, and disabled, as well as all kids medical assistance. Key activities include conducting community outreach, providing educational assistance, conducting initial screenings, providing application assistance, as well as giving follow-up support to help eligible individuals and households obtain needed benefits. The program also seeks to increase the amount of cash benefits provided to individuals and households. Through this program's benefits translate into dollars. So, for example, a single eligible person can obtain $192 in SNAP benefits and have Medicare premiums paid by Medicaid, resulting in a minimum $135 savings that would otherwise be deducted from monthly Social Security pension payment. Through this example, an individual is able to increase their resources by $327 per month and receive health care coverage and food assistance. Next slide. So to be a part of this program, we are looking for respondents to demonstrate the ability to meet the following requirements. Hours and location. The respondent will be given space at each of the 6 DFSS community service centers to conduct PBOE services and will be required to be on site and, as needed due to COVID-19, provide remote services at each site a minimum of 4 days per week. The on-site or remote schedule can be negotiated with DFSS prior to the start of the contract. So you must be able to demonstrate an ability to have staff at these locations. Benefits enrollment. The provider must be able to provide educational assistance to conduct initial screenings and give application assistance, as well as follow-up support to help eligible individuals and households obtain those needed benefits. Next slide. We also want the respondent to provide capacity with benefits maintenance and appeals. So the respondent will need to be able to help clients maintain the benefits or appeal denial decisions. This is including but not limited to redeterminations. Some clients are asked to submit annual applications to ensure continued eligibility. SNAP requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. The work requirements needs to be understood by those applying, or they may be in jeopardy of losing those benefits. So we want to make sure you can communicate and provide education around those aspects. Also, we want providers to provide support with appeals. A large number of individual households are initially denied benefits, but ultimately awarded benefits upon appeal. So applicants will need support doing that as well. We also want respondents to demonstrate the ability to do outreach and engagement. This is where the respondent will provide outreach and engagement throughout the community. Outreach is defined as providing services or educating gathered participants about individual public benefit programs, either virtually or at a location other than one of the DFSS 6 community service locations. So this could be at a social service agency, a senior service center, a hospital emergency waiting room area. Potential clients can be engaged in these spaces during the outreach and engagement, and these should be referred to one of the 6 community service centers for intake and assessment. Next slide. We also want to be able to capture client feedback. Each respondent should be able to establish a standardized process to secure client feedback, as well as a mechanism for incorporating this feedback into their service delivery model. Finally, respondents should have the ability, they must have the ability to provide staff that can serve clients with limited English proficiency. Next slide. Performance goals and outcomes for the PBOE. 65% of eligible client households will receive one or more benefits. The number of clients and households assessed, these are the outcomes or the outputs that we'll be tracking. The dollar value of benefits received by each beneficiary, the number of households who are advised to appeal their benefit finding, and the number of appeals filed. We need respondents to track the number and dollar value of the appeals granted, the number of outreach activities conducted, the number of individuals or households assisted in applying for CHA housing, the number of outreach activities with agencies that have entered into a community partnership linkage agreement with a DFSS CSC, as well as the number of individuals and households assisted through contact of a community partnership linkage agreement. Next slide. Next, I will turn it over to Julia, who will talk about the next steps in our RFP process.
Actually, Mark, I would like to interject one thing prior to handing the floor over to Julia.
Sounds good. Thank you, Laura.
No problem. For the Emergency Food and At-Risk Populations Program, just a reminder that the selection criteria should also include budgets, and if you are competing for the optional and or additional senior food box program, that should be contained on a separate budget. You should also include the pantry locations and the methodology of selection, including the site name, the address, the pantry's ward or community area, and the hours of operation and their proximity to the DFSS community service centers. In addition, you should also include the proposed food distribution product menu listing. These will include the items that you will be distributing at the food pantries, as well as indicating what the unit value for that are associated with those products are. And that concludes my additional items for the emergency food program. Julia.
Well, thank you, Lori. So my name is Julia Talbot. I manage the RFP process for the department, and I am here to go over a few little things about how to make an application for one of these programs or one of the other many programs that the department is doing. Just to go over the timeline, today is the pre-proposal webinar, April 20th, 4/20. The RFP application questions are going to be released on May 3rd. So when I tell you about these instructions about eProcurement, when we talk about accessing the application questions, they are not going to be there until May 3rd. So let me repeat that, because I've gotten a few emails already today, people looking for stuff. You are not going to find them. They are not going to be published until May 3rd. The application for these RFPs, so you're going to go in on May 3rd, look at the application questions, start your application. They will be due on June 17th at 12 noon. So you have it for between May 3rd and June 17th, 12 o'clock noon, to get in your application questions and submit an application to us, which we very, very much hope you will do. But until then, you can look for the application questions, but you are not going to find them because they are not posted yet. June 17th is an important day, because that is the day which, after 12 noon, you will not be able to submit an application for any of these programs. We use an eProcurement online platform that is run by the Department of Procurement Services. They are the host. And the way that this platform works is that it does not accept late applications, and there is really no way for us to accept a late application except through eProcurement. So if it's late, it will not be read, it will not be scored, it will not even be accepted, and there is no way to get it into the system without reopening the RFP, making everybody who already applied reapply, or, as you know, we're giving them the opportunity to reapply. So the likelihood of us redoing that, unless no one applies the first time, is pretty low. We really don't want to do that. That being said, even though this we're only talking about 2 RFPs today, or 2 different RFPs today, this is the CDGA process. It's something that spans about 5 city departments. DFSS alone is doing over 20 RFPs. There's a lot of people in there, and so I am telling people, do not delay. I know from looking at RFPs and managing this process for a while, that really our average applicant really doesn't start writing that application until probably 3 or 4 days before it's due. This is one where you really should tell yourself that it's due on June 15th and do it early, because while the system is not going to crash, and it hasn't crashed in 4 years, your ability to get your procurement or specific questions answered might be delayed in a way that will prevent you from making a good application, just because there are so many other people who are putting in applications as well. Like, generally speaking, we're going to get hundreds of applications from various people across the board, not necessarily for your RFP, but if you're having a problem with eProcurement system, if you have a question about how to manage this platform, or what's going on, or you need TA, there might be a line, and we don't want to ever miss having people being able to put in applications. So when I say save early, submit often, the system does allow you to save stuff. You can submit and then pull stuff back up until that due date if you want, but just try to do this one early. The application is due on June 17th, but I really am like, get it done by the 15th, submit it, be done, and then, rest easy for those 2 days. The contracts start on January 1st, 2022. We generally aren't gonna, the award process for this is that all of our awards for CDGA have to be voted on by the aldermen and city council as part of the city's budgeting process. And so those award announcements probably aren't going to come out until the end of October, early November, just to let you know. So let's go in to the next slide, and I'm going to go over some more application basics. If you are new to eProcurement, if you're new to the city, or you just want a refresher on eProcurement stuff, I'm highly, highly, highly recommending that you attend OBM, the Office of Budget and Management's Technical Assistance Seminar, which is tomorrow from 10 to 12. There are links to that, and you don't have to register, you just show up. There are links to that on OBM's website, on the eProcurement website, on the DFSS CDGA page. And there are there's a bullet where that website is down there. We are going to have this webinar, the link to this from YouTube is going to be posted. This webinar deck is going to be posted on the DFSS CDGA website please, please, please give us a day to post it. Tom and I have been in 5 or 6 webinars for the past 2 days, which leaves us not a whole lot of time to review and package stuff and post it to the DFSS CDGA website. So please give us a minute to get that going. I imagine that they will be posted probably tomorrow or Thursday at the latest, but just if you're looking for those right now, you're not going to find them because we haven't had time to put them up yet. So I have discussed late applications will not be accepted. This year, if you have programmatic questions, because as part of the sort of the equity work that we've been doing within the department and at the city at large, we're reverting to a kind of a more a stricter, more equitable, kind of more formalized way of doing procurement, a way of addressing questions. So this year, if you have a question, a programmatic question, we are asking that you submit it through the eProcurement system. Prior to that May 3rd release date, you're not going to be able to do that. But if you have a question, call Mark, call Lori. They will, or email them with your question. Now, they are not going to answer your question when you call. They are going to take your question down. They are going to note that you called and the date and the time and all of those wonderful things. And they are going to then answer. We're going to do frequently asked question documents. Those were going to be posted in the application when it's released. They will be posted on a rolling basis on the DFSS website so that you can see, so everybody gets the answers to the questions all at the same time. So that's how we're going to be doing it this year. I have a couple of slides that I'm going to walk you through. How do you get into eProcurement to ask a question? And so that's what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of minutes. Next thing up is that if you have questions about eProcurement, those can be answered. So there are 3 or 4 things that you can do. You can email OBM at customersupport@cityofchicago.org. You can email me. My email is at the end of this webinar deck. You can call me, and my phone number is at the end of the webinar deck, or you can call the eProcurement hotline at 312-744-HELP. The hotline operates during business hours only, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I tend to pick up the phone a little bit more readily. On the other hand, the hotline has a higher level of access into eProcurement, and so they're going to be able to, if you really are having a problem, they are the people that you really want to get a hold of, because I can give you guidance, but I can't manipulate your account the way they can. And if something's really complicated, I'm going to bounce it to them. Again, this is a big RFP group that's being released. There are people, if we don't pick up the phone immediately, if we don't get back to you, I try to get back to everybody within 24 hours. I know OBM tries to get back to people within, I think, 24 or 48 hours. But this is why I'm saying, like, do your stuff early, because we're only one or two people. We're only a handful of people. We can't address hundreds and all of the questions immediately. We do register if you call lots of times. We understand you're nervous or you're frustrated, but just be patient. Try to be patient with us. We have put up a DFSS CDGA website on the DFSS site. It is all things CDGA. It is awesome. It's all the links. We're going to have all of the webinar links on YouTube. If you want to relive this fantabulous experience, we're going to have the webinar deck so you can look at the PowerPoints without the sound. Any kind of FAQs that we have, are going to be posted there. It's going to be kind of your one-stop shop for DFS RFQ RFP information. Additionally, OBM and the Department of Procurement Services have lots of training materials on their websites. That's the link that you see at the bottom, is to get to the training materials. There's lots of places. They have videos, they have screenshots of all the things you would want to do. If you're frustrated, you can call me. I have videos. I don't have videos. I have screenshots and things, fairly explicit instructions on step-by-step how to do some real common stuff. And so there is a lot of support, but just be patient, because there's also a lot of people in this particular round of RFPs. Let's go to the next slide. So this is where I'm going to start walking you through how to ask a question into the eProcurement environment. To ask a question in eProcurement, you're going to need an iSupplier account. We tend to use eProcurement and iSupplier interchangeably, but technically iSupplier is the account that an applicant, business, organization is going to use, set up, so that they can interface eProcurement which is the platform where the city does its contracting and finance business. So you use your iSupplier account to access eProcurement, much the way you would use an avatar to play a video game, except maybe not as much fun, or maybe more fun, depending on what you think of as fun. If you don't have an iSupplier account, please call the eProcurement hotline. They will help you set one up. It is a process where you fill out a few forms, you press send, and then you wait for the Department of Procurement Services to send you back an email, and that takes anywhere between 5 minutes and 3 or 4 days. Again, this is why you want to start early. If you aren't already in the system, you want to start early. So to begin the process of sending a question via eProcurement, you're going to need to log into your iSupplier account. Using your iSupplier account login, you're going to go into eProcurement and find the RFP that you want to ask about. All RFPs for DFSS are going to be found on this link. You can also go to the city website and just Google eProcurement. Eventually, you'll get to the page that this link is attached to, which I'm going to show you on the next screen. So this is the screen where you can see all the different fantabulous RFPs and opportunities that the whole city has. So you can, commodities. So it's like if you wanted to bid on blankets, pillows, pillowcases, cots, and amenity kits, you could, do that. You could do, I guess, what was it? The rehabilitation of taxiways. That would be fun. But if you want to do a DFSS RFP, you're not going to be finding it on this particular screenshot, but on May 3rd, or there's May 3rd, there's going to be a ton of them. So anyway, you're going to hit the login button at the lower lower right-hand side there that I've so attractively circled. And when you hit login, it's going to take you to an actual login screen, which we'll see on the next slide. And here it is, a login screen. You're going to put in your username, you're going to put in your password. And if you can't remember one of those things or both of those things, you're going to hit the login assistance that's below the login and cancel buttons. You cannot hit login assistance to get an iSupplier account. You have to sign up for the iSupplier account before you start logging in. Just that came up earlier today. So once you log in with your username and password, you're going to hit login, and it will bring you to this next screen on the next slide. This is this is basically where you can do your invoice stuff, or you can look up RFPs with online bidding. So you're going to open up the City of Chicago online bidding file, and then you're going to open up the sourcing file, and you're going to go to sourcing homepage. So when you click on sourcing homepage, it will bring you to this next screen. Right. So now you're in a place where you can look up the RFP or IRQ number in the CDGA application book, or a CDGA book. We have put the RFQ numbers for all the different RFPs that we have in actually the sort of next to the title of the RFP. So you can look it up. But what you're going to do is you're going to go search open solicitations. You're going to pull down the box that says, and you're going to choose number, because number is really the most straightforward way to find these different RFPs. When I circled an example of a number, but you're going to type the number into the type in RFQ number here box, and then you're going to hit go. When you go to the next screen, I'm going to show you actually the 2 RFQ numbers for the RFQs that are being discussed in this webinar. So these are the, I'm hoping to post actually a list of all the RFQ numbers on the DFSS webinar so people can look them up easier, or again, as I said, they are in the CDGA, the big book, and so you can get to them there. So after you type in your RFQ number, you hit go, and you're going to be taken to this screen. And on this next screen, this is basically where the magic starts to happen. So you would go to this actions bar on the right-hand side. If you were interested in starting an application, you would actually hit the create quote and do it, hit that, and that would start, hit that and then hit go, and you would then actually open an application for yourself. In this case, we want to ask a question. So you're going to go to online discussions, and you're going to hit go, which will take you to this next screen where you say new messages. I think from here on, it's pretty apparent what's going to happen next. You're going to hit new messages. It's going to take you to something that looks like, in fact, an email message, which is great because that's what it is. You're going to write your subject, what your question is. You're going to write your full question in this message part. If for some reason you need to add an attachment, you can, and then you're going to hit send, and we will receive your question, and then we will provide an answer to it in an FAQ document, probably a little while later. So I know it's probably not the immediacy that you are perhaps used to or prefer, but this is a way of making sure that everybody gets the information at the same time. Once again, applications are due on June 17th at 12 noon, not 12:01. And we are really looking forward to receiving your applications and reading them. This is such a great opportunity, and we so appreciate your participating in this whole process. So now is the time that I'm going to turn it back over to Mark and Lori for questions. So I see there was a question here. It says, hello, will this webinar cover the summer out of school time and youth mentorship programs? So I think that was probably an emergency food question, perhaps. So let's see. What do we have here? Mark, Lori?
If that was related to the emergency food program, no, it will not.
Okay.
Out of time or the summer youth program is a separate RFP completely. The emergency food program for at-risk populations only addresses the food needs of the customers under that particular RFP.
Perfect. So that was really the only question that we have so far. I want to leave this open a few more, a little bit longer to see if anybody else has other questions that they would like to type in. Again, if you leave and then realize that you have questions later on, please call or email us with those questions. We are going to put them into an FAQ document. Hopefully the first FAQ document we're hoping will go out with the actual RFP release, and then subsequent questions will be addressed in subsequent FAQ releases, which will be posted in the applications and on the DFSS CDGA website. Wow. All right, so it looks like maybe there are no questions. In which case, I am going to thank you very much for spending this last hour of your day, or maybe not the last hour of your day, but close to it, with us, learning about these programs. If you have questions, please contact Mark. If you have non-programmatic questions about eProcurement, please contact me or the eProcurement hotline. And I hope that you have a really, really lovely late afternoon, early evening, and rest of your week. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much to my amazing colleagues at DFSS for your awesome work. And together we will make Chicago a better place.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.